Back in the days of the Tsar, a soldier was furloughed and went to visit his family. After a long, weary trudge, he arrived one day at a mill on the outskirts of his native village. As the soldier and the miller were boyhood friends, he went inside, where he was warmly welcomed. The miller called for food and vodka, and the soldier and the miller's family sat drinking and feasting until it was quite dark. But when the soldier rose from the table, he wanted to get home and finally see his family. The miller said, Oh, my friend, you must stay the night. It's too dangerous to be out after dark." "Why is that?" asked the soldier. "An evil warlock has come back from the grave and haunts the darkness as a vampire. He roams the village by night and preys on the living, and we are powerless to stop him." "I am used to confronting danger," the soldier said. "What is a living corpse compared to the hell of Sevastopol? Besides, I have come a long way to see my family, and nothing will stop me from doing so." And with that, he gathered up his knapsack and went out into the night. The soldier's path led him past the lonely graveyard, and as he strode through the shadows, a tall, cadaverous figure, clad in a moldy and rotting funeral shroud, fell into step beside him. "Aren't you afraid of me?" the figure said in a harsh, croaking voice. "I am a soldier of the Tsar, and know not fear." "A boon companion," croaked the cadaverous figure, who was obviously the warlock. "Come with me, friend. There is to be a wedding in the village tonight, with piles of food and gallons of vodka to drink." Intrigued, and wanting to see what the warlock was up to, the soldier agreed. And so the strange pair attended the wedding feast, where they were reluctantly made welcome. Reluctantly, for while the bride's parents would have gladly welcomed the soldier, they were afraid to spurn the warlock, lest they antagonize him and cause him to take vengeance. But the warlock proceeded to get as drunk as a pig. He began to holler and danced an infernal caper, bellowing and gnashing his fangs in time to the music, until all the guests fled, all except the soldier, who was closely watching the events unfold. And as he watched, he saw the warlock put the bride and groom into a deep trance. The warlock then took an awl and made a small cut to the hands of both the young people, drawing off a small quantity of blood, which he tapped into 2 vials. The warlock then said to the soldier, "The party seems to have broken up. Let us take our leave." The soldier followed him, but liberated a small bottle of vodka on his way out the door. As the strange pair made their way back towards the graveyard, the soldier asked, "Why did you draw blood from both the bride and groom?" "Who wants to know?" the warlock answered harshly. "I do," the soldier said simply. "Their blood is what will keep me alive. The blood of the bride is in the vial in my left pocket, the blood of the groom in the vial in my right. I will drink both before dawn, and then they will be dead." "And I suppose there's no way to bring them back to life," the soldier said dubiously. "They could be brought back to life if someone was to pour the blood back into their wounds, but that isn't going to happen." "I suppose not," the soldier said with a shrug. "After all, how could anyone possibly defeat you?" "It could be done. It could be done," the warlock said, clacking his fangs in amusement. "During the day, I am simply a corpse," he continued. "If someone was to take my corpse and place it on a bier of aspen branches, they could burn me to ashes, but they would have to be careful, lest any small noxious creature escape from my burning body. Any snakes, or worms, or maggots, or rats, or moths, or flies. Otherwise I would still live on." "I'm surprised you've told me all this," the soldier said. "That's because I'm about to tear you to pieces and feast on your intestines." "Wait," the soldier commanded, raising his hand. The warlock smirked, waiting for him to beg and grovel. But instead, the soldier produced the small bottle of vodka he had taken from the wedding and said, "Let's have a last drink first." The soldier held out the bottle, and the warlock grabbed it, and tipping it to his thin, cracked lips, swallowed the entire contents in one big gulp. He then turned his beady red eyes towards the soldier, attempted to focus on him, and slurred, and now, you die!" But before the warlock could grab him, the soldier darted behind a nearby tombstone. Roaring with anger, the warlock gave chase, and immediately tripped over a broken headstone, falling flat on his face on the cold, wet earth. The soldier had realized the warlock was drunk, and had produced the final bottle to render him completely intoxicated. What followed was a slapstick cat-and-mouse chase. The soldier would show himself, and the warlock would stagger after him, careening off the monuments and howling like a wolf or a banshee. But the soldier kept just out of reach, although he was beginning to tire badly. But he noticed the sky was lightening in the east. When I catch you, I'm gonna flay you alive. I'm gonna," the warlock shrieked. He even threw the empty bottle at the soldier. From somewhere, a rooster crowed, signifying the arrival of dawn, and the warlock fell to the ground, a corpse. Quickly, the soldier searched the warlock's shroud, praying that the 2 small vials of blood hadn't been broken during the chase. He found them unharmed. Walking quickly, the soldier returned to the house where the wedding party had been taking place, now a house of mourning. "What would you give me if I brought the young people back to life?" the soldier asked the parents of both the bride and the groom, and both pledged to give him half of their worldly wealth. So slowly and methodically, the soldier poured blood into the wounds to the bride and groom's hands, making sure to take the blood from the correct vials, and within minutes, the young people awoke and looked around in bewilderment. Mourning was replaced by celebration, or would have been, but for the soldier, who barked in his parade ground voice, "Good people, do you want to be rid of this vampire once and for all?" They answered in a rousing affirmative. The soldier led an army of villagers, armed with axes, spades, and rakes, out to the graveyard. Some he put to work cutting aspen staves, others in carrying the corpse and placing it atop the bier. A fire was kindled, and soon the warlock's corpse was engulfed in flames. And then, the warlock's familiars attempted to escape the fire. Worms and maggots and centipedes, hairy, fleshy spiders, poisonous snakes and venomous hop-toads, rabid bats and hordes of corpse flies, which the villagers killed by slashing them, crushing them, stomping on them, knocking them out of the air, till nothing was left but a mound of greasy yellow ash, which the soldier threw into a nearby tarn. They thought they had totally destroyed the warlock, but they hadn't, for one single, solitary mosquito managed to get away, and since then it has propagated So now we have billions of them on Earth, all sucking blood to keep the warlock alive, until he can someday return. Ow! 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 Little sucker! He bit me! He drew blood! One night, back in the time of the Tsars, a peasant was riding home when the horse, pulling his cart, stopped dead and refused to move an inch. The peasant was about to crack his whip when he noticed the horse was trembling with fright, and looking about, he suddenly realized they were stopped in front of the local graveyard. The peasant tried to calm the horse, calling it "my beauty" and speaking gently to it. But when he tried to lead it forward, the stubborn beast wouldn't move. The peasant resigned himself to spending the night at the cemetery. So, after feeding the horse, he went and lay down atop a fresh grave, planning to sleep until dawn. But the peasant had barely shut his eyes when the grave on which he lay seemed to vibrate and shake, as if the graveyard was experiencing an earth tremor, or something underneath was trying to crawl its way to the surface. Crawl its way to the surface and rise from the dead. The peasant had been aroused in part by the neighing of his horse as it took off down the dirt road, pulling the cart behind it, and when he realized what was happening, he too ran off, bellowing in terror. The peasant hid in some nearby bushes, and, as he watched, a corpse, clad in a stained, moldy shroud, rose up out of the grave, clutching the lid of its coffin in its claw-like hands. The dead man cocked his head to one side and looked about with an air of great suspicion, until satisfied he was alone. The corpse then stalked off towards the village. Curiosity overcame the peasant's fear, and he began to follow the corpse, which made its way to a nearby church, where it placed its coffin lid propped up by the front door. The dead man then lurched on to the village. The peasant went in search of his horse and cart, and once he found them, he rode back to the church and took the coffin lid, which he put in the bed of his wagon, and then he waited. The corpse returned an hour before dawn. It stopped in front of the church, and then started running frantically to and fro, looking for the missing coffin lid. The peasant called to him, to it, "Looking for something, brother?" The corpse twisted its gaping mouth into a rictus, which was supposed to represent a smile. "My good man, you haven't seen a large wooden board, have you? It was painted white." "Oh, yeah," the peasant said nonchalantly. "I have it here in my cart. I'm going to take it home and chop it up for firewood." The corpse sprang at him, claw-like hands raised as it shrieked, "Give it to me or I'll strangle you." In his turn, the peasant brandished an axe. "Stand back, or I'll chop you up too." The corpse changed its approach in favor of wheedling and whining. Wheedling and whining. "Please, brother, please give me back my coffin lid. I can't go to sleep without it." "Tell me what you were doing in the village first." A line of pink appeared along the eastern horizon, signifying the approach of dawn. "Please give me back my coffin lid. Dawn is dawning, and I must be back in my grave or You'll what?" "I'll die. That is, my corpse will become inert, and will fall to the ground, where anyone could stumble over it and hurt themselves. And burn your corpse? Give me back my coffin lid, the corpse screamed. Tell me what you did first, the peasant insisted. I killed a beautiful young woman. Now can I have my coffin lid back? Is it possible to bring her back to life? Hurry, it's almost dawn. Is it possible? Yes, yes, yes. If you take a piece of the left hem of my shroud and place it in a bucket of live coals, then take the bucket into the dead girl's room, seal the room, and expose her to the smoke. That will bring her back to life. The peasant took his knife and cut off a small piece from the left side of the dead man's shroud. He then pushed the coffin lid towards the corpse, who seized it and, running over to his grave, quickly disappeared beneath the disturbed soil. The peasant hurried to the village and quickly located the house of mourning. What would you give me if I bring her back to life? The peasant asked the dead girl's parents. Half of our worldly wealth. A bucket of hot coals was fetched, and the peasant took it into the young woman's bedroom, where he placed the scrap of shroud on the embers. Then, as the smoke began to billow, quickly sealed the room. Within a few minutes, the girl was heard coughing, and then she flung open her bedroom door, demanding to know why her room was full of smoke. The peasant smiled, for the young woman was restored to life, and he was now a rich man. But his smiles turned to confusion, to consternation, as the mourners turned on him and seized him. So you thought you would cheat us out of half our property, the girl's father bellowed. You're a warlock, a sorcerer, the girl's mother screeched. But I brought her back to life, the peasant stammered. After killing her first. The peasant tried to explain about the corpse and the coffin lid, but no one was listening. Instead, they dragged him out to the graveyard, where they hanged him from the stout branch of a nearby tree. And there he dangled for 3 days, until his smell grew too obnoxious, at which point he was hastily buried in an unmarked grave. And on the first night, the peasant clawed his way to the surface, where he found the corpse, his former nemesis, sitting atop a gravestone and smirking down at him. Look what you've done to me, the peasant cried. I had nothing to do with it, the corpse sneered. I'm dead, the peasant wailed. Get used to it. You're going to be dead for a long time. For eternity. What do I do now? The peasant sobbed. Want to go to the village? The corpse asked, laughing. The peasant quit sobbing and said, Yes, yes, let's go to the village. I have a lot of people I'd like to visit, to call on tonight. The moral of the story? In this world of ours, no good deed goes unpunished. If this is your first visit to my channel, my name is Warren, and I write and tell original ghost stories and original horror stories featuring cryptids such as the Night Floaters, werewolves, and black-eyed children. So, do a good deed and subscribe. I promise you won't be punished for it. Till midnight. Cheers.